The marble hall of the Federal District Court in Dallas, Texas, fell silent as Judge Anthony Tanga's gavel struck the wooden base with unusual force. His eyes, blazing with righteous indignation, fixed on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who stood calmly at the plaintiff's table. "Ms. Crockett," Judge Tanga thundered, his voice as hard as steel, "your comments about corruption in this judicial system are a direct contempt of court." With controlled fury, he added, "I order the bailiff to take you into custody immediately." In the packed courtroom, spectators held their breath, eyes widening in disbelief as the bailiff, a stone-faced man, began approaching Crockett. Camera phones rose across the gallery, flashes illuminating the scene, capturing the extraordinary moment when a federal judge attempted to jail a sitting member of Congress during a high-profile hearing on corruption and covert illegal operations. But what unfolded in the next 5 minutes stunned everyone present. Judge Tanga's face shifted from righteous anger to shocked realization as Crockett, maintaining her composure, produced a folder of evidence that not only substantiated her accusations against Lord Michael Dobbs, but also exposed the judge's dramatic overreach, threatening to shake the very foundations of the federal judicial system. The judge pounded his gavel, and the room froze, as if braced for a lightning strike. Dobbs's attorney, Richard Klein, a man with a sharp gaze and a voice dripping with confidence, stood, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor," he began, his tone biting like a drop of acid, "Congresswoman Crockett is turning this court into a circus. Her accusations against Lord Dobbs are nothing but political revenge, designed to destroy a respected figure's reputation for her own fame. Where's the evidence? Where are the facts? These are just loud words from an ambitious politician." Dobbs leaned forward, his smile cold as steel, eyes watching Crockett like a predator awaiting a misstep. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table, feigning confidence, but his tense jaw betrayed a hidden fear. Jasmine Crockett rose slowly, her movements deliberate, as if preparing for a duel. Her navy blue suit contrasted with Dobbs' pale face, her eyes burning with righteous anger, though her voice remained calm, like a lake before a storm. "Your Honor," she began, her words sharp as gunfire, "I'm not here for political games. I'm here to end corruption. Lord Dobbs is accused of involvement in covert schemes that undermine the foundations of our judicial system, and I have the evidence he so desperately wants to hide." She paused, her gaze piercing Dobbs, who involuntarily looked away, his fingers tightening around a pen. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd, like a wave passing through the room. Reporters scribbled frantically, cameras zooming in on Crockett's face, radiating unyielding resolve. Emily Wright, a journalist in the corner, gripped her laptop so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her eyes darted from Crockett to Dobbs, sensing this moment could be pivotal. An activist in the front row, an elderly woman with a faded badge on her lapel, nodded, her face full of hope. But tension in the room escalated as Klein sharply interjected, "This is all speculation. Congresswoman Crockett, where's your evidence? Or do you just want headlines in tomorrow's papers?" His sarcasm drew quiet chuckles from a few of Dobbs's supporters, but most of the room remained in tense silence, awaiting Crockett's response. Crockett ignored the provocation. She stepped toward the podium, her posture exuding confidence, though a flicker of doubt flashed in her eyes, not in her cause, but in whether she could break through Dobbs' wall of influence. "Your Honor," her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel, "allow me to cite the precedent of United States versus Nixon, 1974, where the Supreme Court made clear, no one stands above the law, not even the most powerful. Documents obtained through a FOIA request show that Lord Dobbs not only knew of illegal operations but used his status to conceal them." She placed a thick folder on the table, each page a grenade ready to explode. Dobbs shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. "This is slander," he shouted, ignoring his attorney's restraining gesture. "These so-called documents are fabricated for a political spectacle." His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with defiance. The judge slammed his gavel, his stern glare forcing Dobbs to sit, but the tension in the room only intensified. Crockett continued, her words gaining strength. "These schemes, Your Honor, are not only illegal, they betray the public's trust in the judicial system. I cite Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 201, which prohibits bribery and corruption. The documents show transfers linking Lord Dobbs to these operations. Her voice rang out like a bell, rousing the room. Emily Wright, the journalist, suddenly opened her laptop, her fingers frantically typing. She cross-referenced an anonymous document received the previous day with Crockett's claims, and her eyes widened in shock. The document confirmed every word Crockett said. A muffled buzz filled the room as reporters exchanged glances, and activists clenched their fists, sensing truth drawing near. The judge frowned, his fingers tapping the desk as if counting down to an explosion. Klein tried to counterattack. "These documents haven't been properly vetted. We demand their exclusion." But his voice sounded less certain, and Dobbs clenched his fists so tightly that veins bulged on his hands. Crockett stood resolute, her gaze locked on the judge, as if pleading for him to see the truth. The moment of truth arrived, and the room froze, as if the world had stopped. Crockett opened the folder and pulled out a single sheet, an anonymous report, corroborated by two independent sources detailing how Dobbs used his influence to cover up illegal operations. "Your Honor," her voice thundered, tearing through the clouds. "This document, obtained through an impeccable chain of evidence, shows that Lord Dobbs not only knew of these schemes but profited from them through offshore accounts disguised as charitable foundations." She slowly placed the paper on the table, the sound of it touching the wood echoing like a gunshot. Dobbs's face paled, his eyes darting from the judge to his attorney, searching for salvation, but his confidence crumbled like sand. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat, and he only whispered hoarsely, This is impossible." Klein shot to his feet, his voice trembling with desperation. "Your Honor, this is a procedural violation. This document wasn't submitted in advance." But the judge raised a hand, his face impassive, though his eyes studied the paper intently. The room erupted in whispers like a swarm of bees. Reporters snapped photos frantically, their flashes illuminating Crockett, who stood like a beacon in a storm. Activists in the front row exchanged looks, their faces filled with shock and triumph. Emily Wright stood from her seat, her laptop open to the same information Crockett had just presented. She clutched her folder, her eyes gleaming as if ready to run and publish the story of the century. One reporter whispered to another, "This is the end of Dobbs." Crockett slowly turned to Dobbs, her gaze piercing him, as if saying, "You've lost." This was the climax, the moment when truth, like a flood, washed away all lies. The judge struck his gavel, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "This court recesses to evaluate the new evidence. Parties will be notified of further actions." The room exploded in applause, as if the crowd's pent-up energy had finally broken free. Reporters rushed to the exit, their phones already buzzing with push notifications spreading worldwide. Activists in the front row embraced, their eyes shining with hope, and the elderly woman with the badge whispered, "Finally, Justice." Emily Wright bolted from the room, her laptop pressed to her chest, ready to publish an article that would corroborate Crockett's claims and reveal even more details. Crockett stood, her shoulders squared, but her eyes reflected a mix of relief and exhaustion. She had achieved a moral victory, but the weight of the fight was evident in her every move. She cast a final glance at Dobbs, who sat with his head bowed, his hands trembling as he shielded his face from camera flashes. His once impeccable posture was broken, his reputation in ruins. Klein whispered something in his ear, but Dobbs waved him off, his eyes empty, as if realizing the inevitability of defeat. This moment underscored a broader societal lesson. Corruption, even hidden behind wealth and power, cannot remain in the shadows forever. Crockett proved that truth is a force capable of toppling the strongest walls. But in her heart lingered a question. Is one revelation enough to change a system that allowed such schemes to thrive? The audience in the room, from reporters to activists, felt a shift. This was not just a trial, but a moment that could rewrite the rules. Crockett slowly sat, her fingers brushing the folder, as if reminding herself that the fight for justice never ends. The next day, Crockett's courtroom speech went viral on social media. The hashtag #Justice for Truth trended, and media outlets dubbed her the voice of justice. The investigation sparked by her actions expanded, uncovering deeper corruption in the judicial system. Crockett returned to her work in Congress, but now paused before each speech, recalling the tension of that day in court. Dobbs took a leave from public life, his name becoming synonymous with scandal. Society buzzed. Some called Crockett a hero, others a political opportunist. But her actions sparked discussions about judicial reform, transparency, and accountability in power.